Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Fear with my buddy Mickey Plumley, and welcome to Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. Hey, Mick, we have got a great show tonight talking about basketball, football, baseball. Doesn't get any better. Brent Solheim, we've been talking before this. We went on the air, a great guest. And how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Frank. Just really looking forward to 2 p.m. Friday afternoon and get things kicked off out there in Omaha. Can't wait for that, I
Absolutely.
tell you. And
Absolutely.
as you said, we're doing football, baseball, basketball, a little bit of everything tonight.
Yeah, look forward to it. And by the way, we hope Greg Christ will be with us, but he may not be able to make it tonight because of another commitment. But hopefully he'll join us before we're done. But if not, we always miss Greg when he's not on the show. And you're absolutely correct. We're going to talk about baseball after we more about baseball after we talk with Brent. But I'll tell you what, not only was Morgantown rocking, but the country was. This there's no question. The Mountaineers are America's team. Most of you probably are watching, and Mick, you probably saw that in terms of uniform sales, that the two Mountaineers were leading the nation in terms of uniforms top sold, and it's just they handle themselves so well. In fact, this is the year of the spark of the Mountaineer athlete. When you think about Jordan Harrison, and you think about just everybody on that baseball team, it's just been a fantastic year, and it's not over yet of Mountaineer athletics.
Absolutely incredible, Frank. So far, so good. And, we're all pointing toward football season, which will be kicking off here. We're under the 100-day mark now. So just can't wait for that to get going. Let's see what Rich Rod brings to town this year.
That's right. And we're going to talk, as we mentioned earlier, about football later, focusing specifically on the freshman recruitment class of 27. But we want to talk about one football topic before we bring Brent in. It's the topic that everybody is talking about. And, I don't have to really fill in the blank, but obviously I will. It's the Sorsby case at Texas Tech that's getting all kinds of news, all kinds of churn. Guy who has been betting on college football before he got to Texas Tech, when he was a quarterback at Indiana and then at Cincinnati. The NCAA said, no, you've lost your right to play because you bet on your own team. And that was overturned by I think a circuit judge, had to be a circuit judge in Texas. And the response obviously has been dramatic, even to the point that the Big Ten's talking about passing a rule where no schools in the Big Ten will play Texas Tech in any sport. The Big 12 has basically had conversations, a little more difficult, obviously, a lot more difficult for the Big 12 because Texas Tech's in the Big 12. And as you and I exchanged just before the show, Texas Tech has come back and said, look, if any school or conference says no to us in terms of scheduling, you can expect us to go to court, and respond that way. Mick, your thoughts about this whole, I don't want to say sordid Sorsby, that's too easy, but this sordid matter, or the Sorsby matter, your thoughts?
It's just unbelievable, Frank. I tell you, I just can't believe that Lubbock County judge issued a temporary restraining order overruling the NCAA's decision to permanently suspend Brandon Sorsby for his illegal gambling. And their bylaws clearly say that if you're caught betting on your own team when you're playing at the collegiate level, then you're out of here. Not only for a couple of games, which the Lubbock County Court changed the ruling from a permanent suspension to a 2-game suspension against Texas Christian Abilene, I think, and Oregon State. So big whoop on those two initial games. They probably don't need him anyway. But, this guy gets caught with his hand in the till. They proved he made over 40 bets when he was in Indiana. accumulating more than $90,000 in bets that he placed. It's just totally unacceptable, Frank. If the kid has a compulsive gambling problem, then, I salute him for going and getting treatment. And the word was that he did go into a 35-day inpatient gambling treatment program somewhere there in Texas, April and first part of May. And, I salute him for getting help if he does, in fact, have a compulsive gambling problem. However, if you decide to do something like that, then you forfeit your right forever, in my opinion, to play any sport at the collegiate level. It's just totally unacceptable. And where does it leave the NCAA that they can be overruled by a county circuit court judge? I mean, it doesn't say much for the power that they have. And I understand they've already filed an appeal, an accelerated appeal, to try to get this reversed back the way it should be before the start of the football season. It's just absolutely, it so degrades the purity of amateur athletic competition to bring, in my estimation, so degrading to wager on any collegiate sports. I can see it perhaps at the professional level, but never at the amateur collegiate level. Well, what used to be amateur, now it's becoming pay for play. I think Sorsby I read two sources. One said he got $4 million, and the other said he got $6 million in NIL money to come to Texas Tech. So I mean, it's just everything's gotten so out of hand. I wish they put it back the way it was in the 1960s.
You're right. Mick, you and I've talked about this with Greg, and we're all on the same page. On the other hand, if you look at social media, and I think it's one of the good things about social media, you can get a real good sense of how people are thinking about this. And there are a lot of people on the other side. Some, obviously, a good number of them have skin in the game, and that is they're Texas Tech fans, or they essentially believe the NCAA is the bad guy here. But you're absolutely correct. That's an historic position by the NCAA. And I read very carefully, having been in higher education for 4 decades, and in administration at Michigan State, I read what the president of Texas Tech wrote. Basically, his argument is that the NCAA is not being supportive of student athlete development when you have a guy who has admitted he did the wrong thing, has done the mea culpa, and now is getting help. And what you need to do, NCAA, is not only be supportive, but to do what you need to do at your end to enable this guy to get to, to get back to a life without an addiction, and i.e. that is to play. Now, obviously, and I'm glad you brought it up, talk about skin in the game. Texas Tech has made it very clear in a variety of ways, not just in football and basketball. Take softball. They were in the finals both years, last week, and last year, both losing to Texas, but they went all the way to be able to compete for a national championship. They're spending a lot of money. They have a huge backer who has money and political ties, Cody Campbell, and they're going to fight this. And so we have a situation where we'll just see where it settles. Very tough if you're a Big 12 athletic director, if you come either way, supportive of Texas Tech, not supportive. It's just very, very difficult. And you're right. The NCAA has filed, and this thing isn't over. And, the fan base generally is split. But I'll close with this. If you let this go without intervention, then what is it that you will say that's going too far? And it really gives athletes, it expands the boundaries of behavior of athletes that just frightens me. But it also indicates we knew there would be increasing trouble with the proliferation of gambling. I think it was CBS did a special on gambling among college students. I have friends who have had to go through the process of ridding themselves of an addiction. One colleague I know racked up a significant debt that had to be paid back. It was I remember one night just sitting down with him, talking about what it was like for 10 to 15 years of his life. So it's tough. The story's not over, but I'm glad we had a chance to at least vet our perspective, and others may see it differently. Final thoughts before we turn to Brent?
I just hope we get this resolved. This it hurts. It hurts the brand of college football. It hurts the integrity of the sport, obviously, and I wonder what it does to Sorsby's draftability in the NFL with the standards that they've set. Would you draft a kid that had been caught betting on games he was participating in at the collegiate level? I know I certainly wouldn't, but we'll see how it pans out. And I just hope money doesn't win this time. I hope that morality wins and doing the right thing wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great conversation there, Mickey. And as we said earlier, we're really delighted to have Brent Solheim with us. It's a great story, and if you don't know the story about Brent or know him, but maybe don't know it all, we're going to try to cover as much as we can in the next half hour or so. So welcome to the show, Brent, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join. Thank you.
Yeah. You're down in North Carolina. Why don't you say a few words about what you're doing right now, so the fans know what you're up to these days?
Okay, so I'm living in Greensboro, North Carolina. My wife and son down here. My son is just finished his 10th grade year of high school down here. I've been working down here for 4 years now, impacted by the shutting down of the Milan facility in Morgantown. So I loved Morgantown, loved Fairmont, loved West Virginia. Probably would have never left the state if Milan was still there. But working in North Carolina now for a company named Herbalife. We manufacture protein powder, nutritional supplements, etc. And my team that I manage is about 350 people. So we got a lot of good things going on down here, and have enjoyed our time.
Yeah, great. And, Mickey and Greg and I talk about this all the time. We don't, and Mark Parsons, as you know, who talked with you about being on the show, we talk with Mark, and then he recommends and often makes the first contact with guests. And they come on one week after the other, but they have one thing in common. They were not only great athletes in Morgantown, but also they've had great careers afterwards. And, you're another example in terms of working in a variety of corporate settings. Got your bachelor's degree in engineering, and then after a few years went back to WVU and got your master's in business administration, both great academically and now professionally. And we're going to talk about Roman, your son, in a few minutes, because we're going to send this video to the basketball office and say, hey, you got to recruit this kid, get that last name on his jersey, and bring him back to Morgantown. But your story, one of the things that's really fascinating, and let me start off here, then I'll turn it over to Mickey, because you can tell from your brogue. I lived part of the year in Michigan. You got that a little bit of that Minnesota brogue still. So you're a native of Rochester, not New York, Rochester, Minnesota, and you found your way to Morgantown. That's not easy. So tell us how that happened.
No, it's not. So my hometown, Rochester, Minnesota, it's the home of the Mayo Clinic, so world famous hospital. And one of the doctors there was a doctor by the name of Dr. Spellsberg, and he happened to be a WVU alumni. So he was at some alumni fundraising event, whatever, and ran into, I believe it was Gary McPherson, the first guy who recruited me. And he said, hey, is there anyone in Minnesota worth recruiting? And Dr. Spellsberg said, yes, Brent Solheim and Sam Jacobson. It was one of my AAU teammates. So he mentioned us too. And that's how my name got introduced to WVU basketball. So, then we played that summer. We played in Kentucky, LA, Vegas, and Phoenix. They must have caught one of the games at one of the tournaments, and the rest is history.
Well, what a story! And I tell you, I didn't know that about Gary McPherson. You know that what talk about a lifer? He didn't spend his entire career at WVU, but he was there for 40 years.
Yep.
I think he was head coach. Was it at Salem? I think for a period of time.
Not sure.
And he was also, I think, at VMI. Well, VMI, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was definitely a VMI.
Yeah. In fact, his claim to fame before he came to Morgantown is they actually beat WVU by 1 point in a game. At any rate, wow. But what a guy! So many athletes owe their maybe that's too strong, but a good part of their WVU career probably never would have happened without Gary. What a great guy! Passed away a few years ago. That's fantastic. For the fans that may not know, you played in 95 through 98. Talk about another tremendous Mountaineer, Gale Catlett, who played it. He's a native of West Virginia, grew up in the Eastern Panhandle, went to Cincinnati, came. Say a few words about Gale, and then I'll turn it to Mickey.
Hey, before I jump on Coach Catlett, let me say a couple more things about Coach Mack. So,
yeah, sure.
I was actually Coach McPherson, the last person that he ever recruited.
Unbelievable.
Came to my house in Minnesota, sat down, pitched West Virginia, and then a few weeks after he left my house, he called and said, "Brent, I'm stepping down from coaching. I'm going to run the Mountaineer Athletic Club, the fundraising portion." And then Coach Mel Hankinson came onto the scene, and he picked up where Coach Mack left off. So I had to give Coach Hank a shout-out as well. I stopped by his house a couple months ago in Indiana. I was driving back from my parents in Minnesota, and, we spent 3 hours just cutting it up and talking about the good old days. But, I was actually Coach Mack's last recruiter. Yep.
Incredible. So
moving on to Coach Catlett, though, great coach. Obviously, he's the head coach of the program when I was there all 4 years. And, I'll always be super appreciative of Coach Catlett for giving me the opportunity to play college basketball, paying for my education, and bringing me to West Virginia. West Virginia was not my first choice growing up. I grew up in Minnesota, and, I love the Golden Gophers, wanted to play there. It didn't work out. And, sometimes things don't happen for a reason, and I'm super, super happy to have landed at WVU. Still rocking the gear and everything.
That's great. Hey, Mick, jump in here.
Hey, that's a great T-shirt you got on, by the way. That looks like that might have a few years on it.
Yeah.
It's got the big WV. I got a couple of those myself. They stopped making those for some reason. Well, yeah. Brent, you and I have something. We have something in common already. I was the last player recruited back in 1966 by the head football coach, Gene Corum. They brought in a guy by the name of Jim Carlin to replace him. And 2 days after Gene Corum signed my scholarship offer, they fired him. I'm from Mount Hope, West Virginia, down in the southern part of the state. And the word around Mount Hope was I was the reason why they fired him. So I'm sure that wasn't true in your particular case. So you were part of some great teams, that 97 NIT team and the 98 NCAA team. I was curious, what was your size that you played at? What was your weight when you played? I was looking at that picture. You were pretty good size, weren't you?
Yeah, I was 6'8", 235 was my playing weight. Yep.
235?
235. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you might be a little heavier than that.
I am now.
One of the things that always has impressed me, I was hoping to get your comments on this, is I played collegiate football, and there's a lot of physicality involved in that. But I am amazed when I watch collegiate basketball and particularly professional basketball, the amount of physicality involved in the game. And, with your size, I know also you have a reputation of not being too shy about pushing your way around the court a little bit. And one account said that you may have had as many fouls as you had field goals in your career, but you were known for being a pretty physical player out there on the court. I thought maybe you could talk about that a little bit, the physicality of collegiate basketball and what that was like for you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So the 1990s in the Big East was a very physical time in basketball. Period. You look now; they're big and strong and fast now, but everyone is friends with everyone on social media, and everyone has played with other people in AAU circuits and all that, and that just was not the same when I played. Like the people you were playing were not only on the other team, but they're the enemies, and there was no problem if someone cut across the lane, you just laid into them with an elbow or something like that to not let them get up first. So, I was not the best athlete on the team or the conference, but I could play hard. I'll say that I don't know that anyone outplayed me as far as how hard I played. And I was always super proud of that. And I was never dirty, but I was always physical. So, if they were coming up and they knew they were playing against me, they knew that they were going to have to work. I think that was, my reputation.
Yeah. Yeah, all the accounts that I read about your career and having watched you play, that is certainly the impression that I had of you as a player. You got to establish yourself physically out there. And, I'm just amazed. We were talking before the show about the current NBA series as the championship finals is going on. I cannot believe how physical those guys get with each other. And they seem to get away with it.
Yeah, a lot of pushing, and a lot of times they'll call the person retaliating. But, it feels a little bit like, going back a few years with the physicality. Not so much the three-pointers. I mean, basketball now is so three-point heavy. That was not the case when I was playing. But the physicality, I like that it's making a comeback for sure.
Yeah. It's the way the game should be played. And maybe you could talk a little bit about your experience in '98 in the NCAA tournament. You guys upset Temple, and you upset Bob Huggins' coached Cincinnati team. You want to talk about how that came about?
Yeah, sure. So the year before, even though we made a nice run in the NIT, we were all disappointed in the fact that we didn't play in the NCAA tournament my junior year. We were actually the first Big East team in the history of the conference to have 10 wins in the conference and not make the NCAA tournament. First one ever. So, we had all really thought we had made it, and then we didn't. Made a nice run in the NIT, and so the next year we were, obviously hungry. Had a better record that next year. Actually, in my opinion, we were not better position by position than my junior year, but we were a better team, if that makes sense. A better team overall, and made the NCAA tournament. Every news media, TV, magazines, they all had Temple beating us, and we went out and we beat them by 30. They did not stand a chance from the very beginning. We put that press on them. They did not know what to do, and we never let up. So we beat Temple by 30. Next round, we played the Cincinnati Bearcats. Now, someone from Cincinnati had made the comment about they didn't want to play in Idaho because there was nothing there, and it was in the middle of nowhere. So the Idaho fans that were there were all strongly cheering for us. So it was almost like we had a home team advantage because of the comments that someone made it to a newspaper. It made the big newspaper in Boise. So, yeah, they were all cheering for us. It was a great game. Coach didn't play on that it was an important win to him, but I know there was people out there saying that Bob Huggins, coach at West Virginia and all that, he was still popular in the state. And for Coach Catlett to beat him in the NCAA tournament had to be one of the, if not the biggest wins for Coach Catlett in his entire career as well. And then, we flew. We didn't go back to West Virginia. We flew from Boise on a chartered plane down to L.A. And then we played Utah, Rick Majerus, a few days later. We ended up losing to them by 3. I want to say it was 65-62. And they went on to play in the national title game, and they lost to Kentucky. But with the exception of that Kentucky loss, we were their best game the entire tournament. So, we had a really good team here, made a really nice run. If a couple calls went the other way, we could have been playing the national title game as well, but that's the game. So, but yeah, what a fun run. My parents, they were in West Virginia. They were in Morgantown when it was announced. They drove to Minnesota, picked up my sister, and then drove to Idaho. They went to both games in Idaho. Then when they won, they're like, what do we do now? My older sister's got to work. And they were like, okay, let's just go to Anaheim too. So they drove to Anaheim without any warm clothes. And then they went to that as well. So my parents got to see my last 3 games as well. And that was really special for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
They got to see you play in your last 3.
Yep.
And the players some of the players that you played with on that 98 team, can you name a few of those guys? And do you still stay in touch with them?
Right.
You guys still close?
Yep. So the 2 guys, Damian Owens and Jared West, we played all 4 years together. So we were extremely close. The other, some of the other guys, the other seniors, we were really senior heavy that year. So Adrian Pledger was on the team. He was our 2 guard. Greg Jones from DC, he was another guard. Brian Lewin, he is from New York, but played JUCO in Texas. Marcus Goree was from Texas. Just really good guys. Tom Bynum, Jason D'Alessio were both West Virginia boys. They were a lot of fun to play with. Just Dwayne Lewis, another Morgantown kid. Just a great group of guys.
Do you get back to Morgantown much these days?
Not as much as I'd like to. We're pretty busy down here, and a lot of the weekends, Roman is my son is playing basketball. So, we're super busy with him, and work is always busy as well. So I make it back about once every 2 months, I would say. We still actually have our home in Fairmont, so we never sold our house. So we still have roots in north central West Virginia.
And of course, your first 20 years of your business career, you were with Mylan Pharmaceuticals. So I guess you were in Morgantown just about every weekend during those times, huh?
Well, every day, every weekday for 20 years. Yeah. Yep. I spent a lot of time, loved working at Mylan. A lot of people, once they got on there, they stayed. They always treated me well, and they treated me fairly. And, it was a special place to work for a long time. So, yeah, I still talk about, how much I enjoyed working there.
Well, hey, it's great to have you on the show with us tonight. Frank, that's most of the questions I had in mind there. I'll turn it back over to you.
Good questions and good answers, certainly. One of the things that Mickey and I looked at about you was an article written by our friend Bob Herzl, and I just want to read the quote. He wrote an article a couple of years ago called The Golden Age of Mountaineer Basketball, and you were in that article. Let me just read what he said. He said under the overachiever category, he had you as number 1. He said he was strong, tough, determined, and there for every game, always the same. He never left anything out on the court when he exited. Those are, when you think about those words, those are the kinds of words. I don't care what field you're in. Those are the kinds of words that you want to hear, and you should be obviously very proud of that, but they exhibit what kind of athlete you were.
Yeah. No, it's I'm always happy to hear that. And I will admit, I had a 30-inch vertical. I could bench 300 pounds. I was a good athlete, but I don't think that people understand that when you get to like major Division I, like power, they would call it Power 4, right now. But when you get to major basketball, the people you go against day in and day out are world-class athletes. Like they truly are. The ability to run and jump and switch direction and all that, they're world-class athletes. And I was a good athlete, but I was not a world-class athlete. So one thing that I always made sure of, when we're working out, I always worked out incredibly hard. And then I made sure I was conditioned. I made sure I was strong. And, I wasn't going to let anyone outplay me. That was the one advantage that I had against a lot of people was I was going to beat you to the spot. I was going to get physical with you, and you were not going to like playing against me. And I might not have been able to jump over people. I might not have been able to cross people up, but I made it difficult for the people who had to guard me. And I think that's why I played as much as I did.
Yeah, and one of the things we were talking, or you mentioned before we went on air, let me link to that now, is that not only do you get a chance to play against great athletes, thinking about that Cincinnati team, Kenyon Martin, what an athlete he was, and that's just one. But also the great coaches. You made the comment that you always made sure to get in the handshake line to shake the hands of the John Thompsons of the world. But you think about that NCAA, when you think of those teams you played, and you think of John Chaney at Temple, you think of Bob Huggins at Cincinnati, the first two teams. You mentioned the great, sadly, the late Rick Majerus at Utah. And you think about Gale Catlett. You not only had a chance to play against great players who were at that high level, but the coaches were too. When you think about the Big East teams you played against and the coaches in the Big East at the time, you say to yourself, "Wow, that was basketball. That was the basketball that so many of us grew up on."
Yeah, it was a special time, and I'm so proud to put on the West Virginia jersey every day, and in practice and in the games. And people ask who the best players I played against. I always say, Allen Iverson was an NBA MVP. Ray Allen was all NBA and one of the great shooters of all time. And then I always tell them those were the two best players I played against. The two best people that I had to guard were actually not when I was in a West Virginia jersey. They were both AAU. So Rafe LaFrentz played at Kansas and was a longtime, was an All-American at Kansas, the University of Kansas. And then Corliss Williamson played for Arkansas.
Sure.
And, Big Nasty, they called him. And he was so much bigger and stronger than me. But those were the two toughest guys for me to personally match up against. But the two best players were Iverson and Ray Allen. And just, the list goes on and on. Marcus Camby at UMass, my freshman year. And Kerry Kittles at Villanova, Tim Thomas at Villanova. What's funny is a couple years ago, I was like, I wonder how many NBA players I played against. And when I was a kid, I used to collect cards. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy the rookie card of every single NBA player I ever played against. And I'm just going to see how many there are. And I went down this rabbit hole of, looking up, all of the teams and the players that I was there with or played against. And it was over 50 NBA players that I got to, line up against. And man, what an experience.
Oh, well, I'm glad you brought that up because it just shows you. I'm smiling, and I see Mickey is too. That's what the game's all about. It's not about some of the other things that, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. This is what it's about. But what we also read about you is that, unlike a lot of folks we've had on this show who think early and a lot about going pro and playing pro ball, making it career for a while before you shift to something else, that was not really something. Is it fair to say that when you were finished with your career at West Virginia and you put your toe in the water for pros, it just didn't feel right? Is that fair to say?
No, I knew how good I was, and I knew how good the NBA players were. When you stepped on the court with Antonio Daniels, probably a name that people don't remember, played for Bowling Green, was the number 6 draft pick for the Spurs in '97, I believe. Like those guys were so much better than everyone else, And I'm a realist. I knew I wasn't that good. I knew I wasn't an NBA player. I went overseas and played basketball for 1 week in Germany professionally, and as soon as I got over there, I knew it wasn't for me. I was ready to hang up basketball and start my professional career, but. Those NBA players, people don't understand how good they are. I was the leading scorer at my high school for 19 years in a row. And, I got a Division I scholarship. I started 3 of my 4 years, team captain. And I was not an NBA player, and I knew that. But people got to understand how good even the worst NBA player is way better than probably anyone has ever played against. They're incredible basketball players, incredible athletes, and I knew I wasn't. So, and I was fine with that. I had worked on my engineering degree in college, and I knew I was going to make my money professionally, with my degree, not on the court.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because one of the things that I struggled with when I wrote the book on Darryl Prue, who played in the '80s, was when he played overseas. There is relatively little literature about what it's like over there, and yet the significant number of American players that go and play overseas, and I think that's increased since it's now coming the other way. Players are coming from Europe to play in the NBA, to come to play in college. And, to his credit, a colleague of mine, Bobby Kinzer, who lives in D.C., who played for a number of years in Europe after playing at Penn State, Texas A&I, he decided to write a book about his experiences, just published a couple of years ago, on what it's like for an American basketball player to essentially spend a considerable amount of time playing overseas, because so few of us, even the guys we follow, once they leave college, we don't necessarily follow them when they're playing in Turkey or Spain or France. It's a whole different world.
Yeah, it really is. Part of what people don't understand is when you're 22 years old, you wrap up your college career, you're still a kid. You're an adult by age, but you're still a kid. You've either lived at home with your parents, or you have been to a structured school experience where you have classes and you have practice and there's no time to yourself. Yeah. You get overseas, all of a sudden you have money, you have a lot of time because you don't have to go to school. You're still putting the same hours for basketball. But then there's also a language barrier there as well. So it's not an easy adjustment financially, socially, for people to get over there and do that. And, hats off to the people who can make a career of it. I do know a lot of the world speaks English, but not everyone does. So the team members probably speak English. The team staff probably speaks English, but they'd be running into a lot of people that don't. And it's not easy. So, I've always admired the guys who have been willing to work overseas and make some good money and play a sport that they love, because it's definitely it's definitely challenging.
Yeah, we don't want to let you go. We want to come back to your son. We want to talk about Roman, number 21, who plays in North Carolina at the high level, 8A. I think it's an 8A is the level that he plays in, right, for the high school. Yeah, I'm good at Northwest Guilford. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, that is how it's pronounced. Yeah, Roman. So Roman played for Northwest Guilford the last 2 years. He came down here. I don't know if you know this, but Roman, when he was in 8th grade, did not play basketball. He had a medical. He had a serious medical issue. So I'll back up a little bit before we get to high school basketball. But Roman in 7th grade basketball started limping a little bit when he was playing. And, long story short, we got him in to see the doctors, did physical therapy. And, they basically, after an MRI, they said, well, he has what's called avascular necrosis. It's essentially part of his bone is dead due to lack of blood flow. And they said he can never play basketball again. And he's looking at a hip replacement in 10 years. He was 14 at the time. So then we flew a couple weeks later. We flew to Minnesota, got him into the Mayo Clinic. They said that's not what it is. He actually has a benign, non-cancerous tumor. We can remove it out of his hip and, put it back in place and all that. And he can do whatever he wants to do after about 6 months. So, Roman came down to North Carolina, not sure if he would be the same basketball player he was before surgery. But then he got down here. He started playing with the team. And, started doing really well. And the coach actually started him every game his freshman year. And Northwest Guilford is an 8A school. So you're talking the biggest public schools in the state of North Carolina. And Roman, as a freshman, started at a school with 2,000 students. So then sophomore year rolls around, and Roman comes out and scores like 27 points the first game, 29 points the second game, is absolutely just killing it. Sprains his ankle a few games later, takes a while, makes a recovery, comes back, ends the season with 30 points against a 6'9" Division I commit at Coastal Carolina. Just absolutely gave him the business. So, he had a super strong start, super strong finish. Dealt with this ankle injury during the season, but man, well, what a season he had. He got a lot of attention. He's played on 2 different AAU teams this spring. One of them is out of Charlotte. One of them was out of Winston. It was actually Chris Paul's team he played for with a little bit. But yeah, just he's had a fantastic sophomore season, fantastic spring, and he's actually just committed for next year to go to a school called Caldwell Academy. It's in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's a private school, a smaller private school. But, in North Carolina, I did not know this, but a lot of the private schools get a lot more, they get a lot more exposure. The school that he's attending to the last 2 years had a top 100 player in the nation 2 years in a row. So one is now at the University of Alabama, and one is going to be a senior coming into this next year that also transferred. But he'll be playing for Caldwell this next year. The team is going to be better than his team, his public school team, and they're going to be playing all kinds of showcase events. So really excited to see what he can do. The rest of this summer, we're still traveling to Texas in July. We're still traveling to North Carolina with a Charlotte-based AAU team, but. Man, you talk about a kid who can do everything. Roman is, he's a much better shooter than I was. He's a much better jumper. He catches alley-oops. I caught one alley-oop my entire career that Greg Jones threw to me in college. Roman has caught maybe a dozen alley-oops, and he's not even – just wrapped up his sophomore year. So he's got a super high ceiling. He's going to be a high Division I recruit. Coming out of high school, and I'm just really excited to watch, what happens the next 2 years.
Yeah, I would say for those of you that would like to know more about that story, about the Mayo Clinic and the transformation, just go to Brent's Facebook page. There's a great video there. That's how we knew about it. And also, I can vouch just as an observer because I went to the Max Prep. We went to the Max Prep page for Roman Solheim, and it's interesting. I don't know who was broadcasting that the first game he was in the Class A championship. They were interesting announcers. You could hardly hear what was going on because they were screaming so much. But I think they were broadcasting for the other team. And your son, my God, it must have been a 32-foot shot swish. So he's a great talent, and let's keep our fingers crossed. Hope that he puts on the old gold and blue.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, he like me, when you grow up somewhere and when I was done playing, I'm still a fan. I still will cheer for West Virginia. And living in Morgantown, we went to a lot of games, and I was cheering for West Virginia, and probably just shouldn't have did this, but we would just walk into the Coliseum, walk into the practice facility sometimes, and just work out there like we're supposed to be there. So it's kind of funny. But one Saturday morning we got there, and we went and checked. The practice facility was locked. As we were turned around to leave, Huggins pulls up and says, "Hey, you guys need to get in there." And I was just like, well, we were just checking. We were going to get some shots. So he's like, "Come on in." So Hugs opened up the door for us, and Roman and I got to shoot around for about an hour in the practice.
Oh, wow.
So, I know we did that, but, growing up there, Roman has always been a West Virginia fan as well. And my wife definitely wants to see him go there. But, I always say that was my journey. WV was my journey. Roman gets to have his own journey. So wherever he chooses to go, that's going to be his journey.
Yeah, those are 2 points you made that is dad talk, so important. First of all, we always hope our kids will be better at whatever than ourselves. Make more money, be more humble, be more whatever. And then also it's their road, and we can't parachute in our aspirations over theirs. They've got to make their own decisions. So Good athlete, a good father.
Yep.
Nick, I'll give you the last word here, last observation, and then we'll say good night. Great interview, Brent. Mick, take it.
Thank you.
Hey, great meeting you, Brent. Want to thank you for coming on the show with us here this evening. You had some great stories there, and you put it so well. You know, you had that opportunity to play during the golden age of the Big East, and I was just flabbergasted about some of the players that you mentioned that you had played against. So, real honor to have you on the show with us tonight. We appreciate you coming on. And let's go Mountaineers. Oh, by the way, I did want to ask you one last thing. North Carolina's baseball team, what do you think their chances are in the College World Series, or are you following that?
Yeah, so I'm not. I haven't followed it super closely. I'm a little bit ashamed to admit it because my social media page is filled with West Virginia baseball right now. So we still obviously have a lot of friends in North Central West Virginia. A lot of people are still going to the games. I haven't been following it as closely as I should be, but I'll definitely catch some of the games in Omaha.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Great.
One last thing, and Mickey and I talked about this, and I forgot to bring it up. And Darren, if you have a chance, if you could put up that basketball graphic, and we can talk just for a few minutes about the Mountaineers of today, not just the Mountaineers when you played. And one of the things that we want to talk about as you look at that is the size on that team. I don't think I've ever seen as many Mountaineers at 6'9", 6'10", 7 feet. The way these are the presumed two deep of the 25, 26, 27 Mountaineers. What are your thoughts about the future of Mountaineer basketball?
So, I'm a Coach Hodges fan for sure. I think he did a really nice job last year of coming in and picking up the pieces after, DeVries left. Didn't love the way he left, but, I salute Hodges Coach Hodge for coming in and doing what he was able to do. I like the coach. I like the coaching staff. And, one thing that I'll say that I dislike about college basketball, and it's not West Virginia, it's just college sports in general. I always liked watching the new guys come in, and then you could follow them for 4 years. Yeah. So Deshaun Butler comes in, like, hey, we got this great freshman. He's going to be fantastic for the next 4 years. Now, especially not living in West Virginia, it's really difficult to, you have to learn an entire new team every year, and it's not West Virginia; it's everywhere. Yeah. So for me, it's harder to follow along and keep up with and know who the recruits are and what they do and where they're from and all of that. So, I can't sit here and rattle off all of the West Virginia guys this year. Of course, I'm going to follow them when the season starts, but it's difficult for me being, not in the area anymore, and being able to keep up with, every single recruit. And I always like to know where they're from, if they have what their family's like, all that. But it's just harder to do that now. But I will say I do think the program is in good hands with the coaching staff. Met Ren Baker. I think he does a fantastic job. I think he's made some good hires. And, I think the future is bright. But I can't tell you who our starting center is going to be this year and what his stats were in high school. So my apologies for that.
No, it's every year it's a new starting five. And West Virginia, for a number of reasons, obviously with the coaches coming in and out, that's it's 3 years in a row where you're sort of starting from scratch. But you like the direction of the program. Certainly when you think about what happened, at the end of the season, we won that tournament in Las Vegas. So we've got a nice jumping off point. And so we're all excited about Mountaineer basketball and football. And we're going to talk about baseball in a second. But Brent, thank you so much for taking the time. I really do have to apologize. There was a family member who was behind you lurking, and we don't have time to get him on the air. It looked like he looked there. He's over there somewhere. I think
there he is.
There he is.
There he is. There's two of them.
We didn't.
There are two of them.
Theo and Tavi have joined me this whole time in
that's great.
Spare bedroom here. Yep.
Very good. I'm sure they're going to.
You trained them.
Yeah.
You trained them well. They kept so quiet.
Yeah, they're behaving for once. Luckily, no one's knocked on the door.
That's right. I'm sure they'll watch. They'll watch the replay on in the archive.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brent.
Hey, you're
God
welcome.
bless you.
Thanks, it's nice to meet you.
Really enjoyable having you on, Brent. Thanks.
Thank you.
Boy, I'll tell you, another good one, Mick. Another good one.
What a great guy. What a great guy. Now, I really like his stance with his son, too, and the point that you made, how important it is not to jump in there and let your career be their career. Let their career be their career.
Yeah, same philosophy we had with our kids, and certainly Kathy's
Frank
philosophy.
Jr.
Oh, yeah. Very
sure.
Just, they've got, that's their lives. And anyway, that was fantastic. So let's talk a bit about baseball, which is on everybody's mind. And the excitement of last weekend, Mick, you can't even, it was storybook. Just storybook.
It really was, Frank. I tell you, 29, what do we score? 29 runs to their 2, I think, in the 2 ball games. Just unbelievable. I mean, what a great stepping stone on to Omaha. And a lot of excitement coming up there starting Friday afternoon. Right. Can't wait for that to begin.
Yeah. If you could put up the graphic, Darren, on baseball, we'll talk that through. And, people maybe didn't know this before, but they're learning it now with the Mountaineers that there are 8 teams, everybody knows that makes the College World Series with 2 preliminary rounds. But I'm not sure everybody knew that they're not just thrown there in a lump. They're divided into 2 brackets, so to speak. And the winner of the one bracket ends up playing the winner of the other bracket in the World Series. And, what's interesting about West Virginia is that it's not because, everybody has to beat teams to get where they are. But Cal Poly is not a major college baseball team. We looked at the numbers last week. We have the same numbers up for Troy, and we put up for Cal Poly saying, they haven't had a lot of success when they played major college Power 4 teams, and they're not as good on the road. What's interesting about Troy there, and I know we've had a chance to look at this, they have a much better record than Cal Poly did at 38-30, a much poorer record than Cal Poly at 38-30. It's still good, but that's not the record you would expect for a team that makes the College World Series, although we have had a lot of examples of teams in a variety of sports that basically win their conference tournament, and boy, there they are. And they were only 17-13 in the Sun Belt. But make this point and then turn to you. When you look at the power schools they played a lot of them. 13 of the 68 games, 13 of the 68 games they played have been against power schools, and they've won 6 of them. They beat Maryland, Alabama, Florida twice, both of those games at Florida, Georgia, and Rutgers. So they've beaten ACC, SEC, and Big Ten. And then if you power down to the strength of schedule, and I think it's because they played so many power schools, they're ranked number 8th in the country in terms of strength of schedule, WVU 48. So this is a team you can't overlook, even though they come from the Sun Belt. It's the same as Marshall. We had our way with Marshall 3 times, but it's one day at a time. So this we'll talk more about the data, but your opening thoughts about Troy, Mickey.
Well, the thing that concerns me about Troy is, back in the April time frame, I mean, they were a 500 baseball team. They had as many losses as they had wins, and then they got on a hot streak. And I believe, Frank, you may have the exact numbers, I don't, but I think they won something like 14 out of 18 of their last 18 games. So they came on strong here at the end. There's nothing like peaking right before it's playoff time. I did a little research. We were talking this week about the value of artificial intelligence, Frank, in one of our conference calls. And I posed the question to AI on each team's chances of winning it all. And the Mountaineers came in fourth, according to Chat GPT, behind Georgia, Texas, and North Carolina. And Troy was in eighth place. However, you go back to last year, and who ended up in the finals? Coastal Carolina. Right. So strengths of schedule, I think it all has to do, as Coach Sabes says, just concentrate on the next pitch. That's all you can do. We've won, let's see, in the last 7 games, we have averaged 10.7 runs per game. Wow. That's just, when I was questioning that other team's Kentucky's 8 runs per game, here we've been averaging 10.7 runs per game in the last 7 games. So a lot of it has to do, I think, with getting on the right streak at the right time. And let's see where it goes. One thing I feel for certain, if we can jump out and defeat Troy in the series and get in the winner's bracket to move forward, it's going to be a lot easier for us, given our pitching staff, than it would be in the loser's bracket. If we're getting a loser's bracket, we have to beat some teams twice after that. I think it's going to really stretch Yale and Cole. If we stay in the winner's bracket, though, and keep those guys rested, pitch them in rotation the way we should be, I think we get a pretty good chance of. And so did artificial intelligence. Said if WVU makes it in the winner's bracket going forward, then their chances of winning the whole thing are a lot better than if they have to fight through the loser's bracket. So, hey, that's why you play the game, one game at a time. So we'll see what happens.
Great thoughts as usual. And 2 things you bring up that I think I want to reemphasize. And that is when you look at those numbers that are on the chart that Darren has up, that's full season. And so you're right. It's sort of a tale of 2 cities for Troy. West Virginia, is, if you look at the batting average, the opponent's batting, the team pitching, the fielding, West Virginia is on top in every single one of those statistics. But that's we've been a lot more consistent than Troy has been. And the other thing that you mentioned that, again, I think bears repeating, just think how difficult it was for West Virginia when we lost that game to Kentucky, got into the losers bracket in the regional, and had to win 3 games in 2 days. And we did it, but you just don't want to be in that. The one advantage in this tournament is it's also a double elimination, but also because you've got 2 brackets. No matter what happens on Friday, we won't play again until Sunday, and then likely again not until Tuesday, because they alternate. So that helps the pitching staff out. One guy and there was an article about him today in the West Virginia Press, and it always seems to be catchers. And when you think of the nature of that position, but this Jimmy Kanicki is, and I have a misplaced comma there. He has had so far 85 RBIs, 19 homers, and he's hitting .341.
Wow.
He is a force to be reckoned with. The 2 guys on top, Aaron Plasicki and Johnny Kanicki, the shortstop, really .346 for a shortstop with 10 home runs, is obviously really good. And they have good starting pitching and good relief. If you look at the numbers for Stubbs and Egan as starters, a lefty and a righty. But again, the ERAs are a bit elevated when you think of our guys, and they're right around 3, the WVU guys. And the same thing for the relievers that I have here, Crotchfeld and Alonso. They pitched in a lot of games. 27 each, but you've got a 3.5 ERA and a 4.63 ERA. Take it a game at a time, but I have a friend from Moundsville, Dave Voigthofer, Scott Voigthofer, depending on who his friends are. You know him because you played with his brother, and always give a shout out to Dave. He's driving. He said, "Boy, I wouldn't miss this thing for the world." So he's driving from Moundsville, and he says, "I hope I stay here till the 22nd." So, yeah, but there'll be a lot of Mountaineers, as many as possibly can get out there. But your final thoughts about the College World Series, Mick?
Well, it's going to be an exciting one. You got 5 SEC teams in there. ACC, Sun Belt, and Big 12.
Yep.
And I thought it was kind of odd that on one side of the bracket, on the right-hand side of the bracket, you had all SEC teams.
Yes.
And I'm kind of thankful that we didn't get in that bracket to start with, to tell you the truth, because I think that's where the favorites to win are really located. Particularly Georgia has got a very strong team this year.
Yeah.
They have been there 6 times. I only know that because I lived there for about 30 years. And the last time they won it was 1995, I believe, or sometime there in the late 90s. So, they're tough. Texas is right behind them. Texas is tough. North Carolina. Everybody that's in it has got an opportunity. But this could just be the year of the Mountaineer when it comes to the CWS. Huh? First time in, and you walk away with a win.
Yeah. That reminds me of a post that Jan Antonik, who writes, he writes books and covers sports, is employed by WVU, great sports writer, said, if you ask me who would be the next team, what would be the next team to go to a national championship, just generally at West Virginia, baseball, that's the surprise. You think in terms of basketball and football, but it is what it is. This is an exciting team. And the other thing that's really great about this, and we talked a bit about it earlier, those kids, those players, shouldn't call them kids, but when you think about Guzman and how he turned to his mother when he was interviewed, you think about Kelly, you think about all the guys, and it's not just that. Lumsden, what a story! A guy that sat most of the season and then whacks out home runs, and they're photogenic, they're communicative, they make you proud to be a Mountaineer. They're articulate, they're good baseball players. It's a good package. Got a great coach. They've got a great support staff, analytics, sports science, overseen by a great athletic director. I mean, there's nothing about the picture that you would say, wow, I wish it were. And I don't mean to point fingers, but that's the photo that's the other photo is what's going on at Texas Tech right now. And that's the dark side of college athletics. And we need stories about the bright side. And it's so great when your own school is living that. So it's fantastic.
You're so right, Frank. I tell you, Armani, I think, said it all when he said, look, we realize that this is about a lot more than just us as individuals. This is about the team. This is about the state. This is about all West Virginians. And they're playing with that heart, and that can carry a long, long way. A lot more than NIL money will, I do believe.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, let's do a pivot and get ready for next week. We're going to focus on football next week, and we'll talk about who our guests are. But Darren, if you could put up the football graphic. The topic next week is something that we've been following but not talked about on our show on Wednesday. Freshman recruiting for the 27 class, not coming in this fall, but the fall after, is really, it's in the middle of the season. And On3 rivals, which are the same now, they've merged, is following it, and this is up to date as of June 10th. And what's interesting about this, Mick, you and I have talked about this. If you look at that national rank, West Virginia started off more slowly as measured by On3 rivals. They picked up steam. So we're now 36th in the country. We were 20th at the finish line last year, which is the incoming class this year. But we were number 54 on that list just a few weeks ago, 40 last week. Texas Tech, can't talk about Big 12 sports without talking about Texas Tech, is number one in the Big 12, number 4 in the country. And what's interesting now is that WVU at the beginning was ranked 9th in the recruiting class by On3, then 5th, and now they've moved up to number 2. So, in other words, there's been a lot of steam that has been picked up in the last couple of weeks by the Mountaineer coaching staff in terms of signings. But as you and I were talking this afternoon before the show, there is a huge gap in terms of the numbers, in terms of how the players are evaluated between Texas Tech and everybody else in the Big 12, including WVU. Texas Tech's number 4 in the country. WVU is second in the Big 12 rather, but 36th in the country. But just a couple comments that I think are interesting, and I'll turn to you. They're really focusing on linebackers on defense and running backs on offense. I think something like 9 of the 14 guys they've played that they've signed so far are either of those two categories. And the number 1 by the National Rating Service is a guy on defense by the name of Connor Bonner from Maryland. He's a 4-star. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to translate. These other guys aren't going to translate into being college stars. But that's where we are at this point. We'll talk about how this is going to connect to our show next week in a second or two. But I want to turn to you for your thoughts, early thoughts about the 27 recruiting class.
Well, it's early, and I'm looking forward to talking about this next week. It's going to be a great discussion. And we have a guest commentator coming on next week to guide us through this, right?
The following week, actually.
Oh, the following week. Okay.
Yeah, but we're going to talk. We're going to talk about in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about WVU sports writ large by a beat writer. But next week, Dave Gorby will.
That's right.
Yeah, Dave's coming on.
Yeah. Week after next, we're going to get into this. Yeah, looking forward to the conversation. It's going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Onward and upward.
That's right. So if you could put that graphic up about next week's show, we'll just follow up with that. There we go. So Dave Gorby, who's been on the show a number of times, follows this very closely, and he's going to be on the show to give his rundown. He and Mark Parsons do that so well. We just threw the graphic up. He'll go into the details on these guys and what to look for, and also who's still on the board that they're looking at, because obviously the class is going to be more than 14 players. And then we're very pleased to have with us for about 15 minutes, no stranger to Mountaineer football, obviously, a great player from the 80s and then on to the NFL. Brian Joswiak will be with us to talk about his golf weekend coming up. Joe's Knows Kids that contributes to the West Virginia Children's Hospital. He's going to be with us. And so we look forward to a great show with Greg back next week, Mickey, where we'll talk more about Mountaineer football and the incoming freshman class with Dave, and then more information. And we're going to have, if you could put another graphic up about the Joe's Knows Kids. Darren will talk about that, but Joe's, there it is. And how you can get information there. Just go to Facebook. The URL is right there. And there's a golf tournament, but there's also a dinner on Thursday night. And then there's a bowling to do at Kegler's on Saturday. So all the information, just go to that Facebook page. It's July 9th through 11th. And I'll tell you, Mick, it's always great when we have Joe's on the show.
It is. Big Joe's. Big Joe's. Can't wait to have him back on. He is a treat. He's a legend. He's a Mountaineer legend, no doubt about it.
And he's done a great,
well, he's 30th annual. 30 years he's been working on this. Unbelievable.
And the partner he had, we lost, Wolfman. So that was something that was a passion for him. And when Wolf passed, Joe stepped up, and Scott Sears and a number of other guys are involved too, and that's just fantastic. So, and we can announce it tonight. We're going to be there doing a remote by the first tee on Friday of that week, and we'll be there interviewing a lot of the legacy players who'll be coming back to play, probably starting about maybe 10 o'clock, 10:15, and then going for about an hour or so. So we look forward to being back at Lakeview. That's where the tournament always is, and having our show remote on Friday. I think it's the 10th, isn't it? I think that's the date that we'll be there. And so great show, Mickey. Great interviews you did, and great guest in having Brent on. And we missed Greg, but we try to do our best.
Try to carry forward without him there, but yeah, Brent was a great guest. Looking forward to onward and upward in less than 100 days till college football kickoff.
That's right, absolutely. You think about it, great baseball crowd of maybe 4,500, and then you think of the football crowds of 67,000, and you go, it becomes one of the biggest cities, if not the biggest cities in
West Virginia.
Yeah, that's right. And our final graphic is just a shout out and a thank you. They are the go-to places. They've been so great to us. Anthony Colasantes, and great if you're hankering for Italian food. We strongly recommend, please go to Westover, say hello to Anthony. He is obviously a big WVU fan and supporter, and we always enjoy our remotes there, and of course Kegler's with Doug and Jerry, and we always appreciate the invite to go there. I had a great time a couple of weeks ago in April, and we look forward to being there in the fall. Thank you, Colasantes. Thank you, Kegler's, and we just appreciate both restaurants and both staffs significantly. So I think that does it. And I look at the how about that? I'm looking at my clock. We're right at 8:15. We didn't know if we'd go that long, but what are you going to? Yeah, we did it.
There you go.
Greg will be proud of us. He's like NFL pros. He's giving us scores for. Did you look at the camera and were you articulate?
I'm sure he's taking notes.
There you go. Absolutely.
We'll get some feedback.
Well, for Darren in the back room, Mark Parsons, who does a great job as associate producer, Mickey Plumley, my good friend, this is Frank Fear. Thank you all for joining us either live or in the archive at Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now, and we look forward to being with you again next Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Take care, everybody.